Hey, it's Lags, and I'm going to share with you my six-piece storyboard and kind of God's work in my life through the years in ministry and leadership. And so here it is, and really it begins for me right here in high school, and where God got a hold of my life. That's my youth pastor right there. I don't know if you can see that, but he's shouting out Lags. That's the first time it was ever said was from a Sunday morning when my youth pastor Doug said Lags, and it stuck. And really, in a lot of ways, in the ministry world, Lags is kind of, part of who I am and what people, they know me as. And so, but really began there in a sense of identity and building as my youth ministry and youth pastor built into me and invited me to be a part of student leadership where I got to teach some workshops and classes and really just be formed as a leader and feel like God was maybe calling me to more than just being a part of the youth group. And it was my junior year in Mexico at a camp called Mexicali right here where the speaker asked people to stand up and who wanted to commit their lives to vocational ministry. And I did. I raised both hands. I committed to that and just believed that God had really called me to step into full-time ministry. And so a few years later I graduated high school, and I was in junior college trying to play baseball and got a job one summer, and I was making good money for a 20-year-old. Working for a land developer in Orange County, that can be very fruitful. And I was making more and more money and getting promotions. And all of a sudden, in about 1992, the real estate market crashed. And, I didn't have my job much longer. A lot of us lost our work. But at that time, I sensed that was God speaking to me. And that happened to get my attention. And it was really the sense of every day since high school and since I graduated, feeling like I was being disobedient to that calling on my life, and really that hear and obey, that kind of null set sign on it right there. And so, and that really became transformative as he got my attention, and I decided to enroll at Biola University and began a path into ministry. And at that time, I enrolled at Biola, and I had to get involved in a church somewhere. So I went to my church, South Coast Community Church, which eventually merged with Mariners, where I spent 17 years. And I interned in high school ministry and spent another 2 years there and 8 years in junior high ministry. Followed the great Scott Rachels, who was the junior high pastor before me. So that was fun, and helped the ministry grow in half. Just kidding. So, but while I was at Mariners, that's where God formed my leadership and my passions. And just a few of those things. Couple things, not just student ministries, but more than that. Did about 12, 15 trips to Ukraine. Took about 25 students and leaders, college students every time, and just God gave me a heart for the world and for what God is doing in the church, and to expose people to leadership opportunities and to really see them called into something greater than just being a part of a church. And so that happened in Ukraine. And then after 10 years of youth ministry, I transitioned into small groups and as an evangelism pastor and eventually an executive ministry team. And there were some moments there that really defined who I am today. One was in Palm Desert when I was responsible for taking 750 of our leaders from Mariners on a weekend leadership retreat, and got to really set the course for what we were going to do and build the agenda and the ministry team's time and so on. And so it was a leadership calling, and just a reminder that leadership is something I'm passionate about. And another thing was I got to be a part of the executive ministry team and work closely with Kenton and our executive pastor Brian on some projects and initiatives to help bring the church greater clarity on our mission and vision and alignment, strategic planning. I oversaw the ministry planning retreat and ministry planning process, as well as things like planning our pastors' retreats that we'd go to different places every year, and helping actually change the corporate culture at our church, and working with a guy named Jim Hart at Sendelani, who I'll refer to in my next box here. And then finally Liquid, which was the opportunity to design and create curriculum by DVD and make short movies. And so just using that innovative side and really building tools and equipping leaders to be greater and have what they need to be successful. And so that happened for 17 years, and I was given more ministry. I was asked to do care and recovery. And at this point, you can see right here, that's kind of the leading on empty. And I hit a place of where I was done, and I made some bad decisions, and it really kind of ended my ministry at Mariners. And it was a pivot point for me too. I needed some healing and restoration, and went through that, and And at that time, I went back to Jim Hart, who led this company, Sin Delaney, who helped us with our corporate culture. So that's a gymnasium, so Jim, and that's a Hart, Jim Hart. And he took me through a process, a life mapping plan, something he does with CEOs, and I'm sure he makes a lot of money doing it. And he just did this out of the thankfulness of his heart for the ministry of mariners, and it helped me find my life mission statement, which is I exist to help kingdom-minded leaders and organizations thrive. And that became the filter for my life and everything I do. And it was a pivot and transitional point to the things that really I got involved in and that I'm doing now. In church planting and really having a kingdom mindset for seeing God work in the world and seeing the church multiplied and mobilized and launching Mission Orange County, which our focus is gospel saturation, 3.2 million people, working with churches and pastors to help them plant churches and to impact their cities. And then, of course, Slingshot, which has been so special to me. To give me a platform to really just use my years of experience and those things that I've done to help churches, and not just in staffing but coaching, but just seeing through that lens and so on. And so, but all the things I'm involved with now go back to that moment when I just realized that I exist to help kingdom-minded leaders and organizations thrive. And so that leads to the last 3 years. It's been a huge transition and kind of a new beginning for me. It's been painful and hard, and seeing God use that and rebuild me. But as I've learned just through a painful divorce, something that was hard, that I didn't want, but had to embrace, to be a single dad and to lead in a different way, and sort of on this path, and there's been ups and downs, but I see the trajectory, and I see what it's done in my heart, and the compassion and love it gives me for broken people and pastors who are hurting and leaders who are struggling and whose marriages are at a breaking point, and just to be sensitive to that and to be a pastor to pastors. And so I'm learning now to lead in a new way, and so and I'm excited about the journey. And so that is that's my story of leadership and calling and the things God has done in my life. And so thank you.